What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC Fight Night in Atlantic City happening this weekend, and this card is pretty stacked, especially the main card. This main card is way better than last week's, and last week's was on Fox. So 13 fights on the card, pretty stacked, and Leslie Smith versus Espen Lad's pretty interesting. But I'm gonna start with Aljamain Sterling versus Bret Johns because Bret Johns is one of the biggest prospects in the bantamweight division, and Aljamain Sterling's no joke. One of the top guys there as well. So both these guys are very long for the division, and they're about the same size. Coincidentally, they're both grapplers, BJJ style fighters. Although Aljamain Sterling, I would say, has better striking overall. His kicks are pretty nice, stays on the outside throwing kicks over and over again, gets people to catch his kicks sometimes. Pretty flexible with them. His boxing needs a little bit more work. He kind of stays in that pocket too much sometimes. He doesn't move his feet in combinations, and that could be problematic if Bret Johns is able to take him down or even land his own big strike. Sterling's also coming off that knockout loss to Marlon Moraes, which was in December, so there's some time off that. It's about 5 months, but that was a pretty bad knockout. So it's going to be interesting to see how he recovers from that. He has pretty good wrestling, so maybe he could thwart some of the takedowns, but on the feet, I don't think Sterling's going to have a major advantage. I don't think it's going to be enough for him to just solely win the fight by sprawling, brawling or something. I have a feeling he might be trying to test himself on the ground with Bret Johns, maybe thinking he's better than Bret Johns on the ground. But Aljamain Sterling has amazing submissions, amazing at taking the back at different positions. He's very fast on the ground. Like you saw his submission on Takeya Mizugaki with the arm triangle from the bottom. I mean, very unorthodox Aljamain Sterling is. And you got Bret Johns, who is also a very, very good wrestler. He is excellent with driving into the cage and working there, good with double legs. He's a very traditional wrestler, whereas Aljamain Sterling's more funky, I guess you would say, with it. And although he is as long as Aljamain Sterling, he doesn't fight long. He kind of just walks his opponents down. Very tough, gritty style, but a little bit too stiff for my liking. I don't think he'll be able to cover the distance with his striking alone. I think he's going to have to throw some punches out there that will most likely fall short and then shooting after that. But on the ground, he's very, very dangerous, man. Like you saw with Calf Slicer against Joe Soto. I mean, come on. You don't see that kind of stuff in the UFC. Excellent submissions, very pressuring as well, very heavy on top, great ground and pound as well. So my prediction for the fight is a tough fight to call, but I'm going to go with Bret Johns. I'm going to go by a decision. I think it's going to be a very, very close fight. Back and forth. I think the grappling is going to be very exciting to watch, but I have Bret Johns winning. Mainly because him taking down Sterling and controlling him, and Sterling probably going for submissions that will give up positions. And then we go to David Branch versus Thiago Santos. Now, this is a very interesting fight. Thiago Santos is on the rise, coming off 4 wins, all by knockout within 2 rounds. I mean, that's no joke. He's fighting David Branch. David Branch is very long for the division. Great grappler. His striking could be alarming in this fight against Santos, but on the ground, I think he's going to have the advantage. He's very good at using his length. Like I saw in the Luke Rockhold fight, able to even catch Rockhold as Rockhold's trying to move back and counter him. Branch is still able to stay on the outside and catch him with those long punches. And his wrestling's pretty good. I think he's going to have a hard time getting down Santos at times because of how strong and explosive Santos is, and his footwork is really going to play with Branch. But if it goes on the ground, Branch has some really good submissions, really good top pressure, and he's pretty good at just controlling the opponent. Now, he's known to not really go for the finish as much when he has the upper hand, which could be a problem if he gives Santos any opportunity to come back in the fight if it gets to the ground. But the pressure alone can gas out Santos slowly throughout the fight. If it goes to a decision, I would probably have Branch winning, but you go to Thiago Santos, he's a dynamic striker, one of the most explosive strikers in this division, hits hard. He's adopted a very wide stance, almost similar to Alex Oliveira at times. He'll throw these long-range kicks, spinning hook kicks, long-range punches, and this guy just hits hard, man. If he gets you hurt, he is not going to stop. The thing that worries me about Branch is he does leave himself exposed if someone's going to pressure him, and I don't think he's going to be able to take one of Santos' shots. So the footwork, I think, is going to be a little too much. I think the speed advantage of Santos is going to throw Branch's range off and his grappling off. I think he's going to throw punches from a distance, try to set up for takedowns, but I see him just running into some of Santos' shots and Santos eventually pressuring Branch. So I'm going to go with Santos, and I'm going to go by a second round knockout. And then we go to, you can even say this is like the fight of the whole card. Frankie Edgar versus Cub Swanson, the rematch. Now, Frankie Edgar just came off a devastating knockout to Brian Ortega. Very short rest between that fight and this one. So I don't know where his chin's going to be at. That's a complete unknown factor. And Cub Swanson does it pretty hard, so won't be surprising at all if Swanson catches Edgar, which is something that happens to Edgar in every single fight. Edgar always gets hit hard in his fights. Could the damaged chin, the soft chin, not be enough to take some of the shots of Swanson, whereas it probably would before? But you got Frankie Edgar, one of the toughest fighters, generally speaking. Very fast for the division, pretty small though, but very gritty, never tires, very good wrestler, great boxing to mix up with his wrestling. Just boxing alone, I don't think it'll be enough to take out Swanson, so the mixing up game is something Edgar has mastered, and that's the way his boxing usually works. With his wrestling, if you stop his wrestling, his boxing diminishes in effectiveness greatly. So he's going to need those shots, those blast doubles, the high crotches, all that kind of stuff. And with his boxing, he's not a knockout artist, but he's really good at linking up combinations. Usually ends his combinations with the left hand, very traditional boxing. Some of his low kicks are pretty nice. Especially off his boxing combinations. Everything comes off the boxing. Everything comes off the combinations on the feet. Takedowns, leg kicks, everything. And when he gets you to the ground, he's absolutely relentless. Constant ground and pound, looking for submissions, breaking his opponent, and he does not stop. He does not get tired. That's what you saw in the first fight with Cub Swanson. The pressure was just too much on the ground. But that was a while ago. So when you go to Cub Swanson, also extremely durable, swings from the bleachers, sets up his combinations by switching stances on every single punch, which can give longer fighters problems, but against shorter fighters who can go under those long strides in between his combos, go for a shot or something like that, which plays against Cub Swanson. But the thing about Swanson's punches are they come at very long arcs, his uppercuts come from the ground almost. So he could intercept Edgar with some of those punches if he's going for some shots. His jab is pretty unorthodox. Kind of just pumps it out there and loads up the other hand. He'll throw cartwheel kicks, other kind of stuff like that, but I don't think he'll go that route in this one. I think he's going to try to stay a little bit more traditional, a little bit more textbook against Edgar because he doesn't want to get to the ground with Edgar. But my prediction for the fight, I'm going to go with Frankie Edgar. He could get knocked out, like I said before, which makes this fight a little bit closer than I would have thought, but I think the takedown will eventually come. I don't think Swanson's going to be able to stop it, and after a round or two, I see Frankie just taking the fight by stride, so I'm going to go with Frankie. I'm going to go by a decision. And then we go to Edson Barboza versus Kevin Lee, the main event. It's a big fight as well for the lightweight division. You got Edson Barboza, who is a dynamic striker, probably the best kicker in the game, one of the fastest fighters, probably the fastest fighter pound for pound. As a lightweight, nobody's on this guy's speed. Maybe Michael Johnson. Well, he's a featherweight now, but nobody else, man. Nobody can kick as fast as him. No one can punch as fast as him. Very dangerous offensively. On the defense, he's a different kind of a fighter. He's not as scary, I would say, but if you're in the center of the octagon with this guy, or if he's pushing you back, there's almost no one that can really stop him. He's very good at setting up kicks, especially when he's on the offensive, behind his punches. His jab is pretty precise. His overhand right is precise. His check left hook is pretty precise. His switch kicks are amazing to watch. His wheel kicks, spinning hook kicks, all that kind of stuff. Spinning back kicks, turning side kicks. Everything he throws just has so much snap into him. It's extraordinary at times. He's probably the best low kicker in the game as well. He's the only fighter to stop two fighters by low kicks. And against Kevin Lee, that could be a problem if Kevin Lee doesn't catch those. Because Kevin Lee doesn't seem to check kicks much, and those can really do some damage. And on the ground, Edson Barboza is pretty good at standing up. Not looking at the Khabib fight, which is an outlier. Every other fight you look from Barboza, he's always able to stand up really, and he's very hard to take down. Generally speaking, he's extremely hard to take down. Now, Kevin Lee's one of the best wrestlers he's ever fought, so it's going to be interesting how the strength and the technique of Kevin Lee can play against Barboza, but it's going to be hard, man. Barboza's so explosive. He's almost like a bigger Aldo. Once his back touches the ground, he's exploding like a cat. But for Kevin Lee's very long for the division. His boxing's pretty textbook, very good at setting things off the jab, very basic punching combinations. He'll throw some high kicks in there, some low kicks as well. I don't think he'll go kick for kick with Barboza, but I think he'll try to, or at least the smartest thing is, you got to pressure Barboza. Because the thing about Barboza is, when you pressure him, he gets a little bit wild. He'll throw punches from every direction, and the accuracy and precision of his strikes diminish greatly. So getting him on the back foot, although he will be swinging and winging at shots, and one of those can put you out, he's a lot better to deal with when you do that. And his kicks also are not as effective. He could throw some spinny kicks going backwards, but the traditional Muay Thai style of kicks are not nearly as effective. He could throw flying knees and stuff like that, which could be problematic if he catches Kevin Lee going down for a shot. But Kevin Lee should be able to use his reach and measure distance with his boxing, look for his takedowns when they're present, back him up with the jab, back him up with some of those shots, because Edson Barboza is willing to move back sometimes. And If it goes to the ground and Kevin Lee's able to secure the position, Barboza's in trouble, man. The ground and pound is going to be vicious. He's looking for the back at all opportunities, and overall, Kevin Lee's just a way better grappler than Barboza. So in this fight, it's a hard fight to call, but I'm going to go with Edson Barboza, and I'm going to go by a 3rd or 4th round TKO. But I think it's going to be a pretty close fight up until the finish. So those are my predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. Leave a comment below what your guys' predictions are. Who you guys think are going to win and why. Pretty stacked cards, so make sure you guys watch the card. And for my next video, I'm going to be breaking down one of the fights of the card. And there's some interesting videos coming out next week after that. So be on the lookout for those. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.